So we started the idea of Benoni, and we're into it. And, I mean, interestingly enough, like just like a side point on the idea of Benoni is that Rambam mentions the word Benoni when he's mentioning the balance between two sides of the same midah. Like he says in Mishnah Torah that the Benoni is someone who's a Hacham because he figures out the balance between like both extremes. So it's a different usage of Benoni, just FYI in terms of the midot. Here we're not talking about that, but there could be some similarities in the sense that like if you fuse the two ideas together, um, I mean, like there's this sort of like the way for us, I guess, commoners to get to the tzaddik level is through the way of the Benoni. In the sense, I have to find a middle position in my own life. That struggle itself refines my own midot. I mean, I'm forced to refine my midot through the struggle between the two sides of myself. Well, and what the powerful position of the Tanya has always been, it's a bit of a chidush, this part of it, where like we said before, the two psychological uh, world outlooks of the Rasha and the Sadiq really is the outlooks of which side of themselves is overtaking the other. It's not about a mitzvah machine. We know that it's in Pirkei Avot. We've already said don't try to figure out the calculations of the different which mitzvah counts like this and which mitzvah counts like that. And the Rambam echoes that in the beginning of the Yisod, in the beginning of Hilchot Tshuva, in the halachot of tshuva, doing repentance. So we know it's not exactly although oftentimes it is the amount of mitzvot somebody does. Meaning like this, like a tzaddik does many more mitzvot than transgressions because he is a tzaddik. It's not because the many mitzvot he's doing forces himself into that's the pathway to become a tzaddik, right? It's like the chicken and egg sort of thing. But in reality, we understand that a person who has a drive to serve Kodesh Baruch Hu will ultimately do what Hashem wants him to do, right? Versus somebody like I have to do these mitzvot in order to reach the end, the end goal. It's true. There's a lot of people that say that there's like the mitzvot themselves are designed to refine, who we are. That's one way of looking at the mitzvah. But it doesn't seem like, it seems at least that Baal HaTanya's standpoint is it's the opposite, right? The opposite is that the tzaddik is naturally drawn by virtue. It's we have these terms nefesh elokit and nefesh bahamid. So I think, as I said, there's simply like, the Yetzer Hara is wrapped up in the Nefesh Bahamid, and the Yetzer Tov is wrapped up in the Nefesh Elokit. It seems all very simple, right? The reality is, the Tanya is positing that the Ra, the evil that we sense of the Yetzer Hara, is only because the Bahamid is allowed to control things. If the Bahamid was not allowed to control things, it's not evil. It's the paradigm, or it's the paradigm of control that the Tanya is really referring to. Throughout this, the Benoni is struggling with. The position that most of us are struggling with is this struggle between not do we want to be a Rasha or a Tzaddik. That these are terms. It's the what kind of direction do I want to take in my life? Who do I want to? How do I want to make my decisions? And like the Adam in us, the real Adam, that subconscious part of ourselves, that sad, it's all the same, right? The sad, like the Adam, the thing we're striving for, that selfhood, doesn't really want the Bahamut to be in control, but doesn't understand. It needs help walking through the world in order to learn how to control it, not smother it, but control it. Because an animal, push an animal too far to the corner, it will lash out. It's a danger a lot of people do in midot work. Right? And they do, I'm just gonna go totally extreme, right? Totally extreme to this side of the thing, and we know that's unhealthy. Which is why I just mentioned the Rambam in the beginning. He's Hilchot Deot. He doesn't call it Midot, which are character traits. Deot, which are knowledge points or consciousnesses, right? So that he calls Midot character traits are defined are come from our dot, right? Come from God consciousness. And so he says like it's not healthy to be one extreme or the other extreme. The Benoni is the more normative thing. So is it Benoni a tzaddik? Or it's just that the path of the Benoni is a natural path somebody has to take. That's what I'm positing here.
So is the path of Benoni, is it tied into a vote where it says one mitzvah leads to another mitzvah and one, you know, transgression to another transgression? So the Benoni is trying to not totally squelch the Yetzirah, but more often than not, keep making good choices. And the more good choices you make, the easier it is to continue making good choices.
Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, it's all interrelated, right? Because we're all talking these. So, like, forget about what I think we've said before. Is this it's like 2,000 years ago? It's this cognitive sort of like, if you think of the world this way, you will do mitzvot, right? And we're supposed to be mitzvah machines in a lot of ways, even though I just said we're not really. The reality is, at the end of the day, we're trying to do as many mitzvot as possible because it's part of what our job is as the Bnei Adam. So you're right. I mean, there's definitely a connection to the two. The Benoni, the tzaddik doesn't need to be told that. Although, in a way, there's a crossover. Like we were just saying, like in order to get to the level of tzaddik, you kind of have to go through this one mitzvah at a time thing. But once you're a tzaddik, do you really look at the world that way? Maybe you always keep it simple. I don't know. But I think there is this idea that there's this the Benoni is always sending in the pendulum. That's interesting that you brought that particular picture up, but I brought other ones up. That's an interesting way of looking at it. That like they're always, which way am I going every single step of the way, right? Which way is my the natural inclination going? That's that struggle. It's interesting that constantly you do see in Pirkei Avot that there's this. It's always placed between these two sort of like kind of decisions. Almost. I mean, more often than not in Pirkei Avot, that's how they describe the situation. That's a very clear one. But like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like, especially in that parak, you know, picking mitzvot over transgressions, or picking transgressions over mitzvot. But it seems like the idea of the mitzvah gorer mitzvah brings another mitzvah. Yeah, there is this sort of like world that a person lives in, right? That's what it's kind of saying. The world that the person lives in is a world of mitzvot. So he's going to naturally want to, even if we step away from the esoteric, the more mitzvah I do, the more the klipot are gone and the light shines in, right? Even if I just take a cognitive sort of approach to the whole thing, cognitive psychological approach where like, if my purpose in this universe as the Adam is to achieve my true humanity, which is really the nefesh shall keep ruling over the nefesh bahamit, basically transforming the Yetzer Hara and uplifting it to a higher level. The only way to do that is the mitzvot. So one would say that the Benoni has to travel that path, allowing the mitzvot, always kind of allowing every mitzvah that comes in his path to just go and do it until he builds a world mitzvot. So that person doesn't stop smoking cigarettes in some ways, right? Like the more he stops smoking cigarettes, that's the transgressions, the more he kind of wants to do other things like go for a run. Sometimes it happens at the same time, right? And then, it would seem that that's like, I ran for 1 day, now I ran for 2 days. That feels really good. So I'll keep on doing it. It would seem to be that's what's going on. It should at least lead the Benoni to the Sadiq level. We don't see that here yet, that he can uplift, only at moments he can uplift himself. The struggle seems to be a classic of humanity. The Benoni seems to be the standard human being, even though we said before that most Benoni don't do transgressions. They're just struggling all the time, which puts us all into the Russia category, which also, how can we all be all Rashayim? We're all like burning, that's it, we're burning the fiery, pits of Gehenna. Like I said, I think a lot of his terminology is something we're not used to. It's been any struggles. There's all a struggle. But the Russia, it's not about like only Russia got more like a total like, let's say Achav. And even Achav had some sort of like, depending on how you read it, it has some sort of endearing qualities. But let's just say any of them, like, a lot of the Malchi Israel were like definitely Rashayim, Gemorim. Right? Definitely complete Rashayim. But like a lot of, let's say we all fall into the Russia category, because okay, we've done transgressions. Not a lot of stuff, physical transgressions. Okay, like what's a Russia in the world of Baal HaTanya? It's somebody who's decision-making abilities are run by his nefesh bahamet. It's redefinition of the terms. It's redefining the terms. Right. And our job, I guess in those moments is to try to do tshuva on that. It's to try to say, how do I better allow my nefesh elokit to be the deciding factor, i.e. the mitzvot. I think I went a little tangent there. Benoni hu shelo olam ein hara gover al kol kach l'chvosh. And we're in the beginning chapter 12, I believe, right?
I thought we were at 13.
13. I'm sorry, you're right. 13. I have two marked off places. I was. Ubeze yuvan lashon ma'amar b'tenu benonim zeh v'zeh shoftim. Yes, right. This is. But again, I just preempted it, but that's basically what he's saying, right? He says that it's understood according to this language in Chazal, right? Whereas this language is in it's in the Gemara of Brachot, 9th parak. Benonim zeh v'zeh shoftim. Right? The Benoni, the middle person, this and this are judges, judge, right? Rule. Here, judges are being used as rule. Perush, Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. Okay? It goes back to, discussed many times, Rebbe Nachman told Pshat and Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Tov is good thoughts, Yetzer Hara is bad thoughts. We should go in that psychological realm, the Pnimiyut realm that Rebbe Nachman is saying in the mind. And there's all the heart. And once again, the heart and the mind are the same thing. And so Baal HaTanya is saying the heart is struggling between the sides. He really means the mind, our thought patterns. Makes a lot more sense. It actually fits right very nicely together when you do that. So wait a second. So what's the Yetzer Hara? It's a top. We live in a confused world. So what's a Benoni is really stuck in the confusion of the universe, trying to find his pathway through everything. That's what's going on here. Is the Benoni, the guy in the middle, which is why I think it's most of us, even though if you take the pure, simple shot here, we're all Rishayim. But like in terms of mitzvot and transgressions, but I think the psychology of it really were Benoni. Right? And we're in this struggle between the two sides. This and this is Shoftim. Most of us feel that way. We're not so clear like what part of our mind really is running the show, right? Tim ki amod liyamin evyon lehoshia mishpatei nafsho. That one who stands to the right, the poor one who stands to the right, he is to be saved from the judgments on his soul. The right meaning Yetzer Tov. Right. And they don't say that this one or this one rules, God forbid. Right? They're both struggling. We're struggling, meaning this is the confusion that Mesilat Yesharim talks about in the beginning. I think we learned a little bit of that, like the person transverses the world. And it's not so easy to tell what's going on in this world. It's a very confusing world. The world is the confusion of the world, the dimyonot, the illusory world we live in, that Rebbe Nachman goes into, or Tanya goes into in terms of klipot. It's just a manifestation of our own lack of consciousness in terms of our mind. Beer ketana is our physical body. I feel here we go. He's now redefining how the system works. We grew up in a world that there's a Rasha and a Tzaddik. No, if he lets the Yetzer Hara control himself for 1 hour, right? He's a Rasha for that hour. So once again, there's psychological states of being. About time there's psychological states of being. We know that we understand Arish Mechuzah, you can do tshuva in a moment, so that makes a lot of sense. We don't believe that Judaism doesn't believe that you're permanently frozen, right? We do tshuva. We know that you can do tshuva. So what's tshuva? Tshuva is returning to the true state of being who I'm supposed to be, right? I'm supposed to be that my nefesh elokit's in charge. But I sent down in a world that was everything is mishka bubbled up. Sometimes I let the Rasha in me take over. It's quite powerful, actually. The psychological states of being. Ela Yetzer Hara eno rak al derech mashal kamo shofet v'dayan omer dato b'mishpat. Afa b'ken yechol להיות שלא יהיה פסק הלכה כך במעשה, מפני שיש עוד שופט ודיין הולך עליו צריך להכריע ביניהם, וההלכה כדברי המכריע. Okay. But rather, the Yetzer Hara is not only right according to the way of this analogy, like a judge, right? It says in his Dato B'mish, he like expresses his like judgment on something. Nevertheless, he's able to be he's not, let's see, like actually make an actual like psak halacha. I'll tell you what halacha is at that moment, because there is another shofet, there is another judge sitting there that's cholek. He disagrees upon him, and it's necessary that there's going to be a deciding force between them. Okay, now we're going to go turn all the clock. He's going to go turning the clock back to the original structure. Kach Yetzer Hara. Omer dato b'chalal smoli. Right, we learned this. The Yetzer Hara functions in the chalal smoli, in the left chamber of the heart. V'halev oleh lemoach v'harher bo. U'miyad cholek alav hashofet hasheni shehu hanefesh elokit. Shemolchim pashet b'chalal yemini shebelev makom mishkan Yetzer Tov. And as soon as that happens, the nefesh elokit, the godly soul, is the other judge. And he comes down. He goes, whoop, nope. Hey, I disagree. The halacha should be like this. You're wrong. Halacha k'divrei ha'machriya hu kakodesh baruch hu azro liyetzer tov kama amaro b'teno zal imalei kakodesh baruch hu ozro ein yachol lo. We see from the sages that who's the machriya, who's the deciding force? Hashem. He gives extra weight. He gives extra koach, power to the Yetzer Tov, the good thoughts in a person to outweigh the evil inclination. Ha'ezer ha'era shemeir or Hashem ha'nefesh elokit liot la yitron v'shlita asichlut exil v'yetzer hara kitron or min hashech. This extra light that lights the light of Hashem from the nefesh elokit is able to basically take control over this foolishness, right? The stupidity and the foolishness in the Yetzer Hara, which is basically the Yetzer Hara ki yitrona or min hashech, which basically lights up this like area of darkness. So we live in a very like darkness is always confusion. Darkness is always I don't really understand my place in the world or what I'm supposed to do at this moment. And so the Yetzer Tov is the good, the mindful thoughts, the thoughts that is trying to draw us towards God, to make proper decisions toward godliness. And we're very without the extra kind of light, which is part of the nefesh elokit, because it's really an engine, like an engine of light within us. It's trying to bring light in the world. Its extra power is always to win over the Yetzer Hara if we allow it to, which goes back to this idea we talked plenty of times. Rebbe Nachman says Hashem's always shining light on us. We just allow us. We don't do transgressions. You can relearn that both ways. Either the hashgacha of our own lives will, parnasa, shalom bayis, all sorts of different things. But you can see internal these too. If I don't block the nefesh elokit, which is the source of light within the godly inspiration, siyata d'shmaya, so to speak, inside of me, then I always make the right decisions. It's my own alter ego, so to speak, that wants the nefesh bahamit that still have some power because of the fun in this world that messes the stuff up. Right? It's another way to look at it. And once again, these are good thoughts and bad thoughts. I'll tell you Rebbe Nachman's descriptions of this because that makes a lot more sense. These aren't. It's true. There's metaphysical properties that pour into our mind, but they express in the good thoughts and bad thoughts. I mean, thoughts that take us towards Hashem, that want us to do mitzvahs. You were saying, Terry, that one mitzvah brings another mitzvah. This is where you would see it. Like, hey, my God consciousness, that's part of who I am, is struggling, but every time I do a mitzvah, it gets more empowered to drive my internal psychological makeup to knock down those thoughts. Hey, no, it's like go to the bar over there, right? Like, you're walking downtown Yerushalayim. There's a pub. You can go to the pub, or you can I don't know, go to the hotel and ask Coach Barkel for gula. That's a very extreme example, but I'm using that as make it clear. Like, no, okay, that's very interesting. Okay, but you know what? No, I've already broken that 100,000 times. Right? I don't need to go. It's not interesting to me. Doesn't do anything to me. Right? That's like that's what's going on. However, Ma'acher Shehara Shebechala Smoli Benoni Hu Bitakpo Kedodato Itavot Ta'ava Lechol Tanuge Ulamasa Lo Yipatel B'miut L'Gali Hatov לא נדחה במקומו בכלל, רק שאין לו שליטה וממשלה להתפשט באיברי גוף, לקדוש ברוך הוא עומד למין אביון עוזר מאיר לנפש אלוקית, לכן נקרא כרשע, כמו רתנו. I feel fine. So he's answering the original question. I'll paraphrase this. The original question was, how could, right? The Baal HaTanya says, like, how could this sage say he's really Benoni, even though we know he's a tzaddik? It doesn't make any sense. So it's actually, we're going full circle back into the beginning here. He's saying, that yeah, the evil inclination, the bad thoughts, the driving, the force that pulls us away from God in the left chamber, in the Benoni, right? He's saying it's like it keeps on attacking, and it exists even and it's never really truly nullified, opposing in terms of nullified to the good. Um, and it's not in the Benoni, it's not completely uprooted. Only it doesn't have complete control over the person. Why? Because of course Baruch Hu sends this help, this light, this injection of like extra koach to the Benoni in order to stave off defeat. However, however, because he's not in control, this struggle is a serious struggle, and the nefesh the ra is still there, the evil is still there. He's still called the Rasha, right? Even if the whole world calls him a tzaddik, right? Even if the whole world calls you a tzaddik, right? Be in your eyes like a Rasha. Why? Because you haven't won. You haven't defeated the enemies, i.e., your own Yetzirah. Rather, you're not really a Rasha, mamash. You're more like a Benoni. Don't think that you completely won over the Ra ever, because that's a level of tzaddik. Always treat yourself basically like a Benoni. You're always standing in the middle between the two sides. Always assuming you're always have to be in a struggle. Don't ever assume you have the game won. הוא בתקפו וגבורתו בחלל שמאלי כדולתו ולא הלך ממנו מאומה. Don't ever think you got it, like I said, got it down. You don't got it down. אדרבה, נתחזק יותר מהמשך הזמן, נשתמש בו הרבה באכילה ושתייה ושאר ענייני עולם הזה. And the opposite, right? It'll become strengthened over time. And the Yeshahara, the animalistic part of himself will be strengthened and be used in eating and drinking and any other types of things that are connected to Olam. It finishes the last paragraph. ואף מי שבתורת Hashem אפסו ויגע בה יומם ולילה לשמה, even one who learns Torah, that Torah Hashem is, he desires the Torah of Hashem and he delves into it night and day and night, the Shema, for the sake of heaven. This is actually a big hiddush, right? He's saying even those types of people, this is not a proof that he's not the Ra out of himself, right? Big hiddush. Eli yechol liot shemahuto v'atzmutohu b'takpo b'kvuato b'mkomo b'chalas moli. How do you know? How do you know? Maybe his internal psychological makeup is that the fact that the Yetzer Hara, i.e., the bad thoughts, are as powerful as the good thoughts, and he's constantly in this struggle where the negative side of himself, the negative, the aspirations of the negative forces within him are just as powerful as the ones that are good. We don't know that. We're not inside of him. רק של בושיו שהם מחשבה, דיבור, מעשיו של נפש בהמי, אינה מתלבשית במוח והפה והידיים ושאר איברי הגוף. מפני השם שנתן שליטה בממשלה למוח הלב. It's rather only the enclosing the things which enclose his nefesh bahami, his thought, speech, and action, right? They are not enclosed in the mind, in the mouth, and his hands, and the rest of his body, because Hashem gave shlita and memshala, right, over the brain, over the heart. Therefore, in this person, the godly soul is ruling over the ir katana, his body, and all of them, all of his body, they're just a levush and a chariot. The machshava dibur maaseh of the 613 mitzvot of Torah. I mean, we don't really know. I think what he's saying is you don't really know the war that people are in with internally. So we have to assume that everybody might be a Benoni internally. Even if really the way this person on a conscious level is ruling over his heart. Right? It's a deeper message here. The message is that one subconscious makeup might not be completely cleaned out. And so therefore the struggle that they're facing, we don't truly, just because they're learning Torah day and night doesn't necessarily mean they've defeated that part of themselves. Right? Defeated that weakness they have. We have a lot to go. Let's stop here. Any questions? Okay. Hey, bye, Karen. Have a good week.
Thanks. Bye. You too. Okay. Thank you.